Okay, yeah, so, I am in fact playing, NetHack again. Yeah, I'm not liking that. Nor that. Yeah, so I am in fact playing NetHack again rather than slash 'em as I had threatened. I have got an alarm set this time that I can only hope works. For 14 minutes from now, or a little less at this point. Yeah, I played a game of Slash 'em last night, so I'm not going to play Slash 'em. Maybe next time. I hope that somebody is getting something out of these. And I hope this recording works. And works the way I want it to work. And, yeah, I got about 3 things I'd like to discuss before I get, going. And I guess I'll start off with the old subject of could there be a multiplayer version of NetHack? And I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I think there could, and I think the best way you would do it would be basically, you'd have to have kind of an agreed-upon convention between the players for how long a turn can take. And if you take longer than that on the turn, you're just out of the game. You're essentially quitting. And then I think there would then come the question of, do you multiply the number of monsters and artifacts? Or not artifacts, but, stuff. Since artifacts has a technical term in NetHack. The number of stuff, the amount of stuff for each player. Or do you have it be the amount of, or do you have it be the same amount of stuff, but it's just harder for each player to get new stuff? And I would say you should have both options. And then, weirdest of all, I would have it be played, usually, via email. Which brings me up to the second point I wanted to get to. There should be NetHack by email, dudes. And it would usually go by turn. Dudes and dudettes. It is not inconceivable that there could be a female fan of NetHack. Yeah, and you would usually go by turn, but when you run, you would have it send you a screenshot, when you ran into something. When you run. Otherwise, it would be by turn. It sends you a screenshot each turn. Man, that would be awesome. NetHack by email. And you would just put in your commands and send them and wait. Wow, man. I especially regretted that I knew of no such thing actually existing back when in the days of feature phones. Because I could have been playing NetHack by email, man. All right, well. And the third thing I wanted to mention is when I was 15, before NetHack even existed, actually, I think I was about 15, maybe 14. I guess NetHack 1.0 must have come out the year I thought of this. I thought of a simplified and or generic version of Rogue that I called Passage of the Shrines. That and I tried mentioning that on Usenet decades ago, and the Usenet literati chided me to no end for even mentioning that I had done so. They certainly showed no signs of any interest in it. But I would like to tell you about my roguelike that I invented as a game board game, and don't know enough programming to know how to implement as a computer game. I'd like to tell you about it. It was called Passage of the Shrines, and maybe should have been called Generic Rogue or Rogue Simplex or something like that, but I called it Passage of the Shrines, was my name for the game. And I hope I'm not boring you as much as I would be boring the then current denizens of Rec Games roguelike undifferentiated or whatever it was. Yeah, so it was played, each level was simply an 8x8 board, because I invented it as a game that could be played on a chessboard. Oh, you have to leave in 5 minutes. That's my timer. It is working. Uh-oh. Okay, good. So that'll probably leave as soon as I get going past there. So, it was played on an 8x8 board, and initially it is played as a text adventure, where you simply conceive of the game as being on a 8x8 board, and you don't know where you are. There's one kind of monster in the game, and that monster is called a monster. There's one kind of weapon in the game, and that weapon is called your weapon. And there's one kind of magical item in the game, scrolls. And you name your scrolls just like in Rogue, because that's kind of like the coolest feature of Rogue in a way, and of NetHack. That's the thing that makes it unique. That doesn't really appear anywhere else. And there are, as many, and there are a random number between 1 and 8 of everything, pretty much. Scrolls and monsters. And hey, I invented horse. I invented the concept of there being a horse in a roguelike back in 85. You could have a horse and it would allow you to move 2 spaces per turn instead of 1, and that was about what? And the scrolls did approximately the same sorts of things they do in NetHack and Rogue, including increase your weapon. No armor class. Oh, and combat, single roll of the dice, automatically equal unless you have an increased weapon scroll. And each level, each time you go up an actual physical level, the attack points of the monsters increase. So it's kind of a race, to a large extent, between whether you find an increased weapon scroll or more than one increased weapon scroll, and whether or not you've gone up a level, a physical level. Because next level, monsters are going to be tougher. Combat consists of one move. A random number is generated, and if you get the higher one, whether augmented or not, or the monster gets the higher one, whether augmented by an increase in physical level or not, determines whether or not you or the monster dies. And boy, if you thought Rogue and NetHack were harsh by having full-on unretrievable deaths, this is even tougher because it makes everything simpler. Just no messing around. Either you got one chance, either you die or the monster dies. The monster of a single type, which is called a monster. Okay, now, as for not seeing it, it's played as a text adventure, essentially, with a description of, different directions, unless you find a scroll of special seeing, at which point you see the board, and you see what's on the board, except that everything is represented as an X. Kind of like blindness in both Rogue and NetHack. Everything is represented as an X, and you don't know what anything is. So you know where to go. And it's called Passage of the Shrines because there are 2 different ways you go up a level. Randomly generated, you either have one exit at a random point on each of the 4 walls on your 8-spaced board, or it has a shrine, and if you go to the shrine, you go up a level. And hey, that's the game. Essentially, in a nutshell, I think it would be cool also that you would increase the number of scrolls by 8 each time you added more scrolls. And like that'd be you're upgrading to a new version, you might say. So yeah, that was the concept. Hey, I hope somebody besides me think that cool. I've played tested it on a couple of people, on maybe 3 people, 4 people. Oh, time to leave.